Hello! So today I'm going to be talking about Trust Exercise by Susan Choi. Trust Exercise is my second Susan Choi novel, the first being Flashlight, which I read because it was a part of the Booker longlist this year. Trust Exercise is set in a very high-pressure performing arts high school in the 1980s. It's a place where talent and vulnerability sit very uncomfortably close together. The story centres on two students, Sarah and David. Their teenage romance emerges in an environment that is shaped and sort of distorted by their magnetic drama teacher. His encouragement often feels quite supportive on the surface, but a little bit deeper than that, and we can see it is all about a kind of control that he is yielding over them. The emotional terrain becomes increasingly charged. Rivalries grow, loyalties shift, and the school's culture reveals itself to be far less liberating than like a performing arts school would suggest it is. Now, I've been wondering whether the next part is technically a spoiler or not, and I'm moving forwards with the fact that it is not. So, if you think that what I say next is a bit of a spoiler, which I think a few people could, then you're just going to have to hate me a little bit. But I personally don't. Halfway through this novel, it all of a sudden shifts. It breaks open. What we have been reading is revealed to us to be a narrative that one of the characters in the story is in fact writing. And then other voices arrive into the novel to sort of interrupt, interpret, and dispute this other character's narrative voice. Again, I've just sort of said character there to avoid any sort of like absolute spoilers, but I do think it's important that you know this aspect of the novel because it's what makes it really, really good. I would say that this is more a rupture in the sort of narrative flow and structure as opposed to being a twist. It reorientates the novel at play into almost a study of how stories can be shaped, contested, and pretty much weaponized. Ultimately, Trust Exercise is a meditation on narrative ownership. It's also looking at the selective nature of memory, the murky edges of consent, and the way that institutions quietly protect those in power. Come on now, let's theme it! So theme-wise, we're looking at power structures disguised as mentorship, consent as a consistently shifting, unstable ground, storytelling as both a revelation but also a manipulation, memory as reconstruction rather than record, and finally we're looking at performance as an ethical battleground. Everything within this novel is tying into and looking into that idea of the performative act and theatricality and theatre. Hence why I kind of loved it a lot. So let's have a little examination of the characters, but I will keep it quick. So first up we have Sarah, who is intensely self-aware, and she's emotionally volatile, and she is somewhat of an unreliable narrator. But an unreliable narrator in really interesting ways. Next up is David, who is charismatic but very inconsistent in most aspects of his life. But he is passionate and he is driven. He is seen more as, I would say, like a symbol to others than like a genuine sort of friend or partner in many instances. A lot of people put him up on this pedestal, but in actual fact, yeah, he never quite lives up to that when you get to know him. Next up, we have Mr. Kingsley, who is the drama teacher. And he disguises a lot of the control he's employing and a lot of the trust exercises, the drama games, the Meisner repetition, all things like that. He disguises those as sort of acting exercises, but in essence what we're seeing is quite a manipulative control he has over his students. Next up we have Karen, who is very much a background character in the first half of this novel, the first story being told. And then when this novel does a complete 180, we follow her as our narrator, and she gives us a kind of different look, a different insight into the events and the sort of fallout of what we've read in the first half. Next up we have Mr. Martin, who is a very crucial figure in this story. And he's from a theatre troupe in England, he's a teacher in England, and he is invited over by the Performing Arts School, by Mr. Kingsley, to come over with his theatre troupe and his students to come and study with the Americans, but also to present a play. And his ethics, his ideas, his way of doing things are very questionable, a lot like Mr. Kingsley's. And to be honest, a lot of the questionable things in this novel that you are reading, you might go, bloody hell, that's a bit too much. They are all actual acting exercises, and I use them every day in my teaching at work. So, but you just have to know the boundaries of when you're doing them, what is acceptable and what a student is willing to do and when you're pushing things too far. But that is art, that is acting. We all enjoy the product of great acting. Some of the best performances we've ever seen in our lives on screen, on stage, all come from processes like the ones talked about in this book. And they are sometimes tricky and challenging. So there is, again, this is why this novel is so good, is that it does blend that kind of, what these teachers are doing is ethically questionable. But all acting teachers have always done these things in the history of time, and a lot of the best performances we've ever seen and the people who are true masters of the craft understand the purpose of these exercises. Anyway, I won't go too deep into Mr. Martin, but overall, I would say his methods and his way of being is a little bit more questionable than Mr. Kingsley's, and his presence and what the things that he does sort of is a catalyst for a lot of events that take place. And finally, you do have an ensemble sort of cast of characters. There are lots of other characters in this novel, but they are all painted quite thinly. And they're just like other students or other teachers or visiting lecturers and things like that. So, what did I like and what didn't I like? What I liked. The first thing I absolutely loved, and I mean loved, is the bold structural choices at play. That shift in the first half, I was just like, it just absolutely beautifully reframes what we're looking at. It really, I just love it when like the form, the structure, the framing of a novel so beautifully buys into the ideas that the novel is looking into in and of itself. And I think this novel smashes it. Next thing I absolutely loved is the really tight prose that also always carries weight. I ripped through this one. It's wonderful. Next thing I really enjoyed is it has a great grasp on adolescent sort of psychology. And teenagers and the way they think, what they're feeling, the things they get up to, and then examining that through these sort of drama exercises, these acting exercises, just breaks that open even further, and I thought it was done really well. The next thing I really enjoyed is it's just smart. It's just a really intelligent exploration of narrative ownership. Who owns narratives, who gets to tell stories, done in a really, really interesting way. Next thing I really enjoyed is I have read many novels that have explored unreliable memories, like characters who have misinterpreted things and events being looked at from multiple different angles from different characters. It's not a new thing. However, I thought this was a very, very interesting way of exploring that and gets it right all the way through. Next thing I really enjoyed is I thought its handling of consent. I'm not too sure, actually, I should have done more research when this novel came out, but it might have been maybe in the height of the Me Too movement, but I think that it handles the issue of consent incredibly well, without becoming a lecture, without becoming preachy. It beautifully blends the themes and the ideas and that exploration of consent into the characters, into the story at play, and any novel that can do that, big thumbs up in my book. Next thing I really enjoyed, and you can take it from me because I am a theatre maker, I run my own theatre company, but I am also a university lecturer and I teach acting to students. And I can tell you that the exercises in this book, what it's exploring, the way it talks about plays, the rehearsal process, the way actors talk and hanging out with actors and that whole world, Susan Choi has got it absolutely spot on. I don't know if she's ever worked in the arts in that way or if she's got a best friend who has or where she did her research, but she's got it pretty much spot on with this one. And lastly, I think this novel is going to be a really interesting reread, if I should ever choose to reread it. There is only a handful of books that I have reread in my life. I mainly think there's just too many new books, too many new stories out there for me to read. I very, very rarely reread. However, a book like this, I think, will benefit and become stronger from a second reading. What didn't I like? Only one thing, because I absolutely love this novel. It was totally a bit of me, but the one thing I didn't like is there are some secondary characters in this novel. Some of the English students, some of the students in the American high school, that kind of thing, and even some of the visiting lecturers who they're brought to life okay. They serve the purpose of the story at play, but I would have just like this novel to have been a little bit longer and for those characters to have been sketched out a little bit more. Some of them bring some really interesting concepts to the narrative at play and to what's taking place, and I just felt like they were a bit thinly sketched, but it's only a small negative. It wouldn't take a star off or anything, but it's just something I noticed whilst reading it. And one thing I completely forgot to talk about in my likes and dislikes is this novel deliberately leaves some aspects of its storytelling quite open-ended, completely up to your own interpretation. I have always found that this device either really, really works or really, really doesn't work, and context is everything. in this sense, with this novel, for me, it absolutely works because this is a story about memory, about stories, about narrative, about ownership. And having those gaps, having those vague moments in there, allowing you to make that decision, almost puts the ownership of the story and its continuation onto you. And again, I think that is such a fantastic, fantastic choice. So my final thoughts is that Trust Exercise is ambitious, it's deeply unsettling in moments, and very, very intelligent. I absolutely loved it. Now, probably this is a 4-star novel for most people. It's just excellent. But because I work in the arts, because it is literally looking at the two sides of my job, creating plays, making theatre shows, but also being a lecturer and a teacher of acting at a university, I mean, a bit different from a high school, I'm sure, but either way, it's in my wheelhouse, everybody. It's absolutely in my wheelhouse. So I'm going 5 stars for this one, through and through. It is definitely one of the best books I've read. Or is up there. Top 5? Top 10 books I've read this year. So have you read Trust Exercise, and if so, what did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Please let me know in the comments below. I also think there are some similarities between this and Audition, if you have also read that novel that was from the Booker shortlist, long list this year as well. But either way, what did you think of Trust Exercise? Let me know. I hope you're well. I hope you're enjoying whatever you might be reading, and I'll see you all on the next one. Bye.